Stay on the mic, now let's spill the tea. Talking courtside dreams from history. Legends on the blacktop now and then. From Wilt to Steph, we hit it again. All better chimes in, let's go deep. Young bloods rising, can't skip a beat. Puppy prospects with fire in their eyes. Draft night suckers and hoop dream highs. Wire to wire, bring the heat. Broadcast magic can't be beat. Do better, we're blow better. We're hoop heads, trendsetters.
Yo, what is poppin', y'all? It's your boy, Guardy3. And of course, right next to me is the greatest co-host of all time. Ladies and gentlemen, it is Mo Better.
Hey, what? Mo? I'm doing great. What's good, everybody out there? We appreciate you dropping in for another episode of the M1 podcast. By the way, episode 30?
Yeah, milestone episode. It's episode 30. It's crazy. It's crazy we made it this far. It feels like we've been doing it for, 30 episodes. That's a long time, 30 weeks. And I'm just kind of a little overwhelmed. It's a great milestone, and hopefully, we'll 30 episodes down, 30 more to go, 30 more after that.
Yeah, I like that.
Say for all our supporters and everybody who's, watched us and been down since day one, definitely appreciate you guys. Everybody in the N1 Discord, thank y'all for holding it down and supporting us.
Yeah, most appreciated. Appreciate you guys.
Yeah, so, let's get into it. Underrated player of the week. Too many NBA players, they get lost a little bit in time. Mo, what a player team would you like to talk about today?
So I'm going to go with team because obviously the NBA just lost one of its great ambassadors, Dikembe Mutombo. So I'm going to celebrate not the team that went to the finals, he and AI, but the team that pulled off the first upset in terms of the 93-94 Nuggets were the first 8th seed to beat a number 1 seed in NBA history. And Dikembe Mutombo was the anchor of that team. In that series, he averaged over 6 blocks per game. So I want to shout out Dikembe Mutombo, Reggie Williams, Brian Stith, Rodney Rogers, Mahmoud Rauf, a.k.a. Chris Jackson, all those guys that were part of that 94 Nuggets team that had that incredible run because they didn't embarrass themselves. Not only did they upset the Sonics, they pushed the Jazz in the second round to a 7-game series. They lost in game 7. So I just want to shout out that team and give that team and their leader, Dikembe Mutombo, their flowers.
No, absolutely. No matter what you did in that series, you could not get past Dikembe. He was just an absolute anchor. And yeah, the fact that he put up so many blocks in a 7-game series, like what was it? It was like, he said like 6 a game. It was like 37 or 38 blocks in a 7-game series.
I think back then in the first round, I think the series were they were 5-game series in the first round. In the second round against the Jazz, he averaged just under 6 blocks a game. But in the first round, there were only 5-game series.
That's right. Because I remember he put up like a 38 blocks in 7 games against Utah.
Right.
And then 6 a game in that first round. That is just crazy.
It is crazy.
So, yeah, shout out to the legend, Dikembe Mutombo. You will be missed. Thoughts and prayers to all the friends and families of Dikembe. Just a true giant of the game.
No question. On and off the court.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I completely forgot that Dikembe played in that 2015. There's that game they had in Africa. And I forgot Dikembe played in that game. Him and Hakeem.
Yeah.
Hakeem actually cooked Vooch at like 50 years old on the dream snake, and there's nothing that Vooch can do about it. See, this is tough because I was thinking about talking about that same Nuggets team.
Oh, did you? Oh, see, great minds. There you
right?
go.
I'm gonna go with a different Nuggets team I wanted to shout out. Actually, I'll stay with the Nuggets. I'm gonna go a little earlier. How about, because everybody likes talking about D'Antoni's 7 seconds or less, real run and gun, not much defense kind of team. Well, what if I told you that the 80s Nuggets, these early 80s Nuggets teams, were also very much like that? You watch those early 80 Nuggets teams, I think they were underrated in their entertainment factor. That team wasn't great defensively. Did they have a lot of playoff success? Not really. But were they entertaining in the fact that that team could score the ball at will and just get into the most entertaining shootouts you will ever see in your life? Yes. Alex English, Kiki Vanderway. I think Adrian Dantley made a quick stop over there too. That team.
Don't forget, I think they had Dan Issel, right?
Yeah.
Calvin Nat, guys like that.
I would say that team has the highest scoring game in basketball history when they lost to the Pistons. I think it was 186 to 184.
How many overtimes?
I think it was 2 or 3.
It was something crazy.
It is just the most wild game, and the whole thing's on YouTube. If you ever want to watch it, it's on YouTube. And the funny part is, it wasn't like it was just all terrible defense playing. Like, there's a lot of terrible defense if both teams are reaching 180. But there's also quite a bit of just good defense, and both teams just have all of their shots falling. It was just a truly special game to watch. And it was a ton of fun. And just overall, in general, that team gets forgotten because they didn't have a lot of success. But I think that team was also a ton of fun to watch, and almost a blueprint of what you saw years later when D'Antoni brought over the 7 seconds or less Suns.
No, I agree. And look, you can always question and criticize the bottom line. Those teams didn't win titles, and that style of play it has the ceiling to how far it can take you. If you can't get stops, at least on the other end at times, I just don't see how you can win a championship with that style of play. It hasn't happened yet. I just don't see it happening. The Nash Suns were entertaining, even more entertaining, but their whole thing was get you to play at their pace, and they can lull you into that. The problem was, though, that the other teams, at least when you start playing the better teams, they could get a stop here and there. The Suns couldn't get stops.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And speaking of winning or losing with a certain style of play, it looks like we're going to be getting the old school James Harden like we talked about last week. And he even said, they said that you couldn't win a fight or go to the finals with my style of play, yet Luka Doncic just did it. So James Harden is confident that his style of play works because Luka just did it. And from all intents and purposes, Mo, we are going to see 34-year-old James Harden try to relive his glory days in Houston.
Yeah, I mean, I know he said Luka just did it, but I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, Luka, you mean 24-year-old Luka? Like Luka's 24, 25 at the most. This isn't 24, 25-year-old James Harden. I'm not saying he can't still score. I'm not even saying he's not capable of pulling out a 40-point game here and there. But if you're asking me what I think he's going to average, I think he takes it up to the 21, 22 points a game. I will say this. With Paul George gone, there is a void. And I guess in James Harden's mind, he thinks that he's going to get to play more like he did in Houston. And maybe they will encourage that early in the season, especially if Kawhi Leonard's not going to play. I still don't know how that carries over for a 34, 35-year-old James Harden in the bigger picture, right? You're trying to win. You're trying to be relevant. You're trying to be a playoff contender. And he's trying to recapture his peak from, 6, 7 years ago? It doesn't usually work that way.
I think... Hey, Reverse Enigma, thank you for tuning in. Nick Batum is back. Clippers will be fine. You know what? Nick, great.
I like it.
Hey, he shifted that Philly was series last year with that incredible performance. I know he didn't win the series, but you know what? Right. He was absolutely incredible last year for Philly.
I love Nick Batum. Good player, solid defender, capable shooter. But if we're keeping 100, he's old too. The Clippers are an old team. They're that there was a time when they had title aspirations. Now they're like, let's see if we can make the playoffs. Like that, those are completely different goals. This isn't a title contender. This is a team that's going to be fighting, and I do mean fighting to make the playoffs. Because now you have a healthy Memphis Grizzlies in the mix to go along with Dallas, to go along with, I would say, an improving San Antonio team, right? They're going to be better. Houston's going to be better. Even Denver, even though they lost some pieces, you still got Joker, you still got Murray. Denver, I don't know where the Clippers fit in. Matter of fact, I'm going to make the argument, and I'm going to be right, that if you look at the Pacific Division, if you look at that division right now, the Lakers are going to win that division. And this isn't Homer talk. This is just plain common sense of reality. Look at who's in the Pacific Division and tell me who's going to beat the Lakers for that division title. It ain't going to be the Clippers. It ain't going to be the Warriors. It ain't going to be the Kings. Who's going to be better than them in the Pacific Division? Nobody.
I think it's tough because I think the Suns will be a fine regular season team. I think the Kings will also be a great regular season team.
Great or good, because the Kings don't play defense. The Suns don't really play defense. Like, the NBA is still a star-driven league, right? I would take, this isn't Homer talk, LeBron and AD are better than any combination Sacramento has. They're better than any combination the Suns have. I'm just being realistic. They're the best duo in the division. They are. And if the Suns are going to hang their hat on Bradley Beal's going to have a bounce back year, that's why you're not going to win the division. I like Sacramento. I do. I enjoy them, but it's because, look, that hot take, that goes to my point. That division is so weak. Yes, the Lakers are going to win that division. They're going to run away with it.
Yeah, honestly, I honestly could absolutely see this being true. The Kings are interesting because I think the duo of Keon Ellis and Keegan Murray could bring some balance that they need defensively, so I think that could help. But I think they just better be careful because I feel like if they try to dabble too much with playing too many Malik Monk, DeMar DeRozan, and just going all in offense lineups, I think that'll hurt them more than help. But
That's a good point.
I think Keon and Keegan are going to be almost the underrated keys right now to the Kings. Like, they need those two on the court to bring balance defensively and offensively.
And I'm not here to debate whether or not Sacramento is going to be a tough cover. They are. They're going to be nights where they're going to have 3 or 4 guys on a heater, and they're going to have teams on their heels. But I'm thinking bigger picture. Sacramento going to win a title? I don't want to be mean because it sounds like I'm being mean. Do I think the Sacramento Kings are going to win the title this year? You and I both know the answer is no, because they're not going to win the title. Are the Warriors going to win the title? No. We can go down the list. There's nobody in the Pacific Division that's going to win the title. You might have two teams from the division will make the playoffs, but one of them ain't going to be Golden State, and one of them ain't going to be the Clippers. I think that's what's going to happen. You'll have 2 teams make the playoffs. That'll be the Lakers. Mind you, this is barring major injuries, and the Kings. I also think both of those teams will probably more or less be first-round exits as well.
No, that's fair. If people want to know what I think about the Pacific, I think I predicted that the best team in the division, which I also did pick as the Lakers, ironically, I predicted them as a play-in team. Like,
it's possible. It's possible. Look, the Lakers might win 48, 50 games and be a play-in team. I don't disagree with that.
Like, that entire division, just there's a lot of star power in there, but like none of their rosters just seem to really make sense outside of the star power.
Yeah,
like, the Suns got KD D-Book duo, awesome, great. The roster outside of that is terrible. Lakers have Bron and AD. All right, I like Austin Reeves. Outside of those three, though, it gets really inconsistent really quick.
Agreed, 100%.
The kid,
Agreed.
Sabonis, DeRozan, Fox, great. But then you only have like 2 defensive pieces on your entire roster. So
Right.
it just feels like it's a division that just doesn't make sense. Like they got the stars, and then they're like, okay, you know what we're going to do? Offense. Just stack the offense.
Right. You know what? The Pacific Division right now looks like a bunch of 80s teams, right? The early 80s. There's going to be a lot of firepower, not a lot of defense. Look, if Mike Brown can somehow put together a rotation where there are some good defenders on the floor to go with their offense, they can prove me wrong. The Kings could be the best, not only the best team in the division, they could make some noise in the playoffs, but I'm going off their track record. Their 2 best players, actually, their 3 best players, because you're talking about DeRozan. DeRozan, Sabonis, and Fox can't stop a nosebleed. None of them play defense. Can't stop a nosebleed. If your 3 best players don't play defense, I'm just saying, what do you expect to change? Their strategy is to outscore people, and you can probably get away with that in the regular season. You won't get away with that when the floor shrinks in the playoffs.
No, that's fair. And speaking of the floor shrinking, we had a trade. The Minnesota Timberwolves have officially acquired Julius Randle and Dante DiVincenzo, and the Knicks have acquired Karl Anthony Towns. This trade is interesting, Mo, and I definitely want to get your thoughts on it. It feels like the Timberwolves are like, you think you're good, prove it. Here's some spacing from 2004. Good luck. Overall, Mo, what do you think are the pros and cons of this trade?
So I've been talking about this trade for over a year. And to be fair, do I think this could be a trade that could be a win-win? Potentially, it can be a win-win for both teams. It could be. Because if you look at Towns and what Towns brings to the Knicks, one, Towns is already comfortable at playing the 5, something Randall's not comfortable at. Towns doesn't need the ball. A lot of his actions are off the ball. Towns is one of the best shooters, and I want to say that again, one of the best shooters in all of basketball. Not one of the best big man shooters, one of the best shooters. So when you got a big that can shoot from 40% from 3, shoot a high percentage inside the 2-point line, not to mention when he's focused, look, Towns can drive to the basket. He can play with his back to the basket. He's a good passer. I think he's better for the Knicks because of the spacing. The 2-man game between him and Brunson should put a struggle on anybody. I've heard people say, well, what is Towns going to do with Embiid? Well, you don't have to worry about that because when has Joel Embiid ever came into the playoffs healthy? He'll get the usual version of Joel Embiid. He's going to get somebody that's limping, and they'll help him out, and the Knicks will beat the Sixers in the playoffs, and everybody will wonder why they brought Paul George there. The Knicks, what they got is they got a floor spacer, and they got somebody who naturally fits in with the fact that it's Jalen Brunson's team. I think that's the real key. Towns was good, Brett. Towns was good when Ant came along and took over. Like, that's part of the thing about Towns that you can call it, I wouldn't call it a strength, but it fits. He's not an alpha. He's not an alpha. Talented guy, but he's not an alpha. So going to the Knicks, knowing that it's Brunson's team, I think he's going to fit in there fine. Julius Randle, to me, going to the Timberwolves, he's going to already walk into a situation where, one, the idea that he's the number 2 guy. Like, that's literally how you start off. You're the number 2 guy. And you're not going to be taking 19, 20 shots a game, bro. I don't see that happening. And in Minnesota, they're going to challenge him to play a little bit more defense. I think they will. He's not a good defender. And for all his talent, he takes a lot of bad shots. I said it could be a win-win, but I think it's a lopsided trade. It's not a coincidence that the Knicks had to trade. They had to trade DiVincenzo, Randle, and a pick to get Towns, because I don't think the Timberwolves really wanted Randle. I don't think they really wanted him. but you had to go that route. You had to go that route, and getting DiVincenzo, it does give them another perimeter defender. It gives them another three-point shooter. So I think they get deeper if Julius Randle can come in there with the right attitude. I think he comes in there, averages around 19 points a game, 8 or 9 rebounds. He can have a really solid season on a team that's built to win now, Brett. And it works the other way around. I think the Knicks, they lost to the Pacers in the second round. I think the Knicks with Karl Anthony Towns, and I think they're not done adding pieces, by the way. But when you look at Bridges, when you look at OG and what they have across the board, I think he's a perfect fit for the Knicks. It kind of amazes me, and I'm sure you've heard this too. New York Knicks fans as a whole, they hate this trade. They don't like this trade. They hate this trade. I want your thoughts on that. Why do you think they hate this trade?
Both sides, like, hilariously enough, seem to almost hate this trade, and I feel like it's just a byproduct of trading two almost unpopular NBA players who have a bad rep. I feel like a lot of NBA fans or a lot of Knicks fans, they didn't really see a lot of Karl Anthony Towns, but they heard like all the bad that he does because, you know, you look on Twitter, they normally like to talk about the bad things more than the good.
No doubt.
But then when you finally get to see him in the playoffs, like offensively speaking, it wasn't all that great. He had a nice little couple game stretch against Denver, but outside of that, it really wasn't. It was really up and down and inconsistent. So I think it's more they probably didn't actually watch a lot of Karl Anthony Towns last year, and then when they finally saw him, there's a lot of cold shooting in that playoff stretch.
Fair.
I do think that I like this for the Knicks. Let's start with it. Let's be clear. It is a risk for them. If it doesn't pan out, if Karl Anthony Towns doesn't pan out, he's on the book for the next 4 years. He's making $61 million that last year of that contract. The flaws of Karl Anthony Towns are also very clear. He is an incredible shooter, and that will always age, but that also can kind of keep him glued to the three-point line when sometimes you're just watching him and a little frustrated. You're like, dude, you have a mismatch. Just be more aggressive and get inside. He'll like to keep it out. He'll keep that defense spaced out, but sometimes you get stuck out there. Defensively speaking, he'll commit some of the most mind-blowing fouls that you will ever see and get himself into early foul trouble.
He's known for that.
So I think this is going to be mixed bag, and it's going to be a lot of fun. And I'm curious to see, because I know they went out, they made sure to go public and say, yeah, me and Cat, we cleared up our issues. You know, we're fine. Him and Tibbs did not get along very well in Minnesota. And guess what? Cat commits a lot of those same stupid fouls. And if Cat's not having a good shooting night, he will put his head down and get frustrated and almost take himself out of games at times.
That's facts. That I would say that's one of his weaknesses. His mental can be a little soft. Karl Anthony Towns, if you talk about just talent as a big man, he has number one talent. But his mental is so up and down. You're right. He takes himself out of games. And I think the reason why him and Tibbs bumped head the first time around, Brett, is just no secret. Tibbs is old school. He's going to push him. He's going to call him out for missing defensive assignments. He's going to call him out for just shooting jump shots and letting a smaller defender off the hook. I think if Towns can lock in and look at the team around him, matter of fact, look at the conference as a whole. Outside of Joel Embiid, the Eastern Conference it's not reeking of great big men. There are not a lot of big men. I think Karl Anthony Towns in the Eastern Conference will have no problem playing the five all over again. Like, other than Embiid, who's scary for him? Who's scary for him? There's not a lot of good bigs in the East. And when you look at the East, he's actually the one that's a mismatch because he has range. Embiid can shoot from the three, but other than Towns and Embiid, what big man can really match up with either one of them or what they can do with their skill sets? I think Karl Anthony Towns, I don't think he realized, maybe he realizes it now because I heard he wasn't really excited about the trade. But if he looks at the landscape, dude, it's Joel Embiid and then it's you.
Yeah, no, that's fair. That's fair. I think, the only arguments you can really make for better centers than Cat in the East are it's really just Joel, him, and Bam Adebayo. But Cat is a much better offensive piece than Bam Adebayo, so it almost feels like they kind of even out in that regard.
Although, look, if we talked about this before, if Bam is going to feature that jump shot that he showed in the Olympics,
Oh yeah,
that changes the landscape as well. Suddenly, he's right there with them because he's clearly out of all the big men in the NBA the quickest and more agile by far because he's really not a 5, he's a 4.
no, that's for sure. And I think with the Julius Randle aspect of this, it's intriguing because I understand what they're trying to do. Because it almost felt like Cat, Gobert, Conley, this group that they had last year, they had a nice run, but it almost felt like that this is a team with a limited shelf life. That you can maybe get another 2 years, 3 years of competing, maybe before it kind of, goes completely downhill. More of it was probably being cheap, but it almost feels like the Wolves saw that and almost took the initiative. Hey, this isn't going to be sustainable. We want to be able to build around Anthony Edwards through his prime properly. Let's move on from Cat, get off that big contract. We'll take Julius Randle, he has a player option for this year. So,
right.
Worst case scenario, you have to wait. Worst case scenario, 2026, you'll have all the flexibility in the world. And you can probably build around Anthony Edwards the way you want to. Now, I think there's a big flaw with that line of thinking. You can have all the cap space that you want, but how are you going to convince now a star to come to Minnesota? We've seen a better players fail to be able to bring stars to these places. We've seen LeBron not be able to bring free agents to Cleveland. We've seen Giannis strike out on some players to come to Milwaukee. We've seen bigger stars in small markets just whiff because it's just not that appealing to come play in a Cleveland, a Milwaukee, a Minnesota.
Yeah, facts.
So I think the idea is fine to clear up this cap space to build around him. But now you put pressure on yourself for the front office because now you have to do something with this cap space. And I'm just hoping that Minnesota doesn't feel pressured that, oh my goodness, we have to make a move, and then they just jump and do the wrong signing when they can't get any superstars.
And look, I think you're right. Let's look at the current state of the NBA. What superstar could you see in 2 years going, yeah, I want to go to Minnesota and play with Ant? If one comes to your mind, more than likely it's going to be a superstar that's closer to the other side of their prime, an older one. But anyone that's at their peak, they're not going to Minnesota. They're just not. What you think that Utah hasn't tried to get people to come to Utah? Nobody wants to go to Utah of their own free will. Nobody's going there. I think another thing is in play here too. Don't forget that they do want to retain Naz Reid. And by making the trade, they have a flexibility now where they can afford to re-sign Naz Reid. Julius Randle is one of those kind of things where they're like, if it works out, great. If it doesn't, he can walk. You and I both know, you guys were talking earlier on the ball, and I was like, there's no way Julius Randle in this day and age is going to opt into a $19 million last. He's not going to do that. Not in this day and age with the money they're giving out. He's going to go look for somewhere where maybe he doesn't get more money per year, but they just pay him a bulk sum of like $75 million guaranteed. That's what's going to happen. And I think depending on what he brings to the table for the Timberwolves, they could be that team. But if he doesn't get with the program, if he doesn't help, like they were in the conference finals. So anything less than the conference finals, you'd have to consider failure, right? And I think that I'm not putting that all on Julius Randle. That's on everybody, but he's going to be a big piece now because let's keep it 100. By default, he is the number 2 option on that team, right?
Yeah.
So it carries a certain burden to it. And we're going to see if he and Ant can develop chemistry because Ant was used to handling the ball, or Mike Conley handled the ball. Julius Randle, to his credit, can handle the ball, and he is capable of creating for others. So maybe in some ways, he might not score as much, but he might be more effective that way for them.
I think that's a big piece of it too. That's how I think that Julius Randle makes his biggest impact this year. It's not going to be scoring. It's just passing. Let's be real. Minnesota is not ripe with great passers. Anthony Edwards, for everything he does well, passing half the time just isn't one of them. You don't know where an Anthony Edwards pass is going to end up half the time.
He gets caught in the air a lot.
Yeah, he jumps and then he looks for the pass to make, and if nothing's there, it gets wild at that point. I would say that the only guy, the best passer on the team, obviously Mike Conley. The second best passer last year, Kyle Anderson, but he's in Golden State.
And they lost Kyle Anderson. That was a big loss.
Yeah, and I would argue that that's going to be Julius Randle's biggest thing. He has to pick up that secondary playmaking that they lost with Kyle Anderson, because you can't replace catch shooting. You're just not going to be able to do that. But if Julius Randle could come and even shoot, like, let's say 36% from three, keep it average, but more importantly, be willing to be that secondary distributor they lost when Kyle Anderson walked out the door, that would go a long way. And not to mention, Julius Randle can guard a lot of more of these smaller fours better than Karl Anthony Towns could. So I think they lose rim protection, but I also think that you can guard the perimeter a little better with Julius Randle over Cat. So there's definitely some positives here for the Timberwolves, quite potentially, if Julius Randle buys into the program.
Yeah, look, like I said, there's no reason why this can't work for both teams. I want to put it out there. It's not a secret. I feel about Julius Randle the way I feel about Derek Carr in the NFL. It isn't that he doesn't have talent, but for some reason, you just watch him and you know he's not that guy.
Yeah, and then, of course, the other part with this, too, Wolves collecting arguably one of the best bargain contracts in the NBA. I'm talking about Dante DiVincenzo.
Yeah.
At, like, what was it, $12 million a year?
Yeah.
It's insane value for Dante. If he continues to play, now he doesn't need to reach the level he did last year. If he plays anywhere near that level, that's just going to be an amazing value over the next 4 years.
I think here's the crazy part. I think Julius Randle could play well, but I think that Anthony Edwards is going to love Dante DiVincenzo a little bit more than he loves Julius Randle. Do you know what I mean? Because of what DiVincenzo brings to the game, because of how DiVincenzo's a dog too. So you get DiVincenzo, Jaden McDaniels, and Ant out there on the perimeter. Don't forget, DiVincenzo's a good perimeter defender. He's an underrated athlete. So he's not just a throw-in. He's going to be a big part of their rotation. So I think both teams, you're talking about two teams, one went to the conference finals, one went to the conference semis. These are title contenders. It's going to be really interesting how this plays out on both ends.
Yeah, and I love this time of the year. We're getting closer to the NBA season, and yesterday is one of the most hilarious days of the year.
Oh yeah,
for the NBA. It's media day. Everybody's lying. Maybe the biggest lie told yesterday. Malcolm Brogdon comes onto the stage and goes, "Yeah, I'm finally where I want to be. I've always wanted to be a Wizard." Dude, you are from Atlanta. Like, what ties do you have with the Washington Wizards? Like, were you just a big fan of Wizards Jordan? Which, funny story, the only Jordan jersey I have is a Wizards Jordan jersey.
Right.
Like, that to me, that was one of the most hilarious things to hear. I'm like, dude, you don't need to lie. Come on now.
I thought that was funny. Come on, Brogdon. You're a veteran. Brogdon's got to be, 31, 32? You're not trying to spend the other side of your career on a lottery team. Stop that. Come on, man. Matter of fact, there's already rumors right now that there are a bunch of teams watching the Wizards situation because everybody thinks the Wizards are going to buy him out. I think he's saying all the right things because he hopes they buy him out.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Hey, if he says all the right things, maybe he thinks they'll do right by him and buy him out sooner.
Yeah, exactly. I give Brogdon credit. He's trying to be a professional. He's trying to be a company man, saying all the right things because he wants out of there.
Oh, fair enough. And it's funny how a lot of people just completely will like take quotes and just run away with them in the wrong context too. And it's so funny because Paul George comes out and he says, "This is the first time I played with an elite point guard and an elite big man."
I heard that.
And I found it so funny how many people got defensive on Twitter. They're like, "Well, what about Russ?" Like, well, what about him? Do you consider Enes Kanter or Steven Adams elite big men? Like, you're missing half the quote here. Like, then some people, what about James Harden? Okay, does that mean you consider Ivica Zubac an elite center? I think Paul George was absolutely correct in saying this. This is the first time he's ever had a combination of both. And I'm super excited to see what Philly does. Well, night one, they're losing to the Bucks. But, also excited to see what they do game 2 after that.
Look, I'm a big Tyrese Maxey fan. I really think that if the Sixers want to go on a deep playoff run, that I think they need to lean more on Maxey and take some pressure off Embiid. I really do. And I'm talking about during the regular season because we all know Embiid comes out on fire, he'll average 30 points a game or whatever, and then he'll wear down. I think if they can rely more on Maxey and Paul George, maybe throw in Kelly Oubre and some others, and Embiid's minutes are cut a little bit, maybe he can get to the postseason healthy for once, and they'll be set up to go on a deep playoff run. I don't think Paul George was wrong. He's playing with an MVP. He's never played with a center that could do any of the things Joel Embiid could do. Zubac is a good player, but he's a rim runner / rebounder. He played with Roy Hibbert, another rebounder who had no real offensive game. Like, I don't think Paul George said anything that wasn't 100% facts. Can you compare Hibbert, Zubac to Roy Hibbert to Embiid? That's crazy. Matter of fact, I'm not sure that Hibbert and Zubac are better than their backup center. I don't think they're better than Drummond.
I would say Roy Hibbert. Roy Hibbert was such an interesting fellow. I've just never seen somebody get named an All-Star and then just drop off as quickly as he did. Like, getting played off the court by like Pero Antic against the Hawks just completely demolished his confidence or something.
And don't forget, Roy was the one with that they made the whole call about verticality. Remember that?
Oh yeah,
that was all about Roy Hibbert. Verticality was all about Roy Hibbert. The man made 2 All-Star teams and then fell off the roof.
I remember when like people after Kobe's unfortunate passing, they went back to watch his last game, and a lot of people's takeaway was just, I don't remember Roy Hibbert being this bad, and I'm just like, I forgot he was even on that Lakers team. But
I didn't forget. I was not happy about it.
But yeah, Joel Embiid came out and said all the right things. He said he'll drop some weight. He said we got to do whatever it takes to make sure that in the postseason I'm healthy. This year is all about no agenda, no All-Star, no All-NBA, none of that. So Joel Embiid cares about one thing this year: staying healthy for the playoffs.
I love it. And if he can stay healthy, if he can keep the weight off over the course of the season, that'll take some pressure off his lower body. I'm all for it. I want, as an NBA fan, I want all the contenders to go into the postseason healthy. I want everybody to get everybody else's best. I don't want no one missing time. Obviously, if you're a Clippers fan, it's only a matter of time before Kawhi gets hurt. I'm not wishing that. That just becomes the norm. You know what I mean? Like it's like breathing. At some point Kawhi Leonard's going to miss some time. He's already going to start the season missing time. Although I saw an article where he said he's shooting to play opening night, and I'm like, dude, if you're hurt and you're saying stuff like, "But I'm shooting to play opening night," don't play opening night.
No, absolutely, and I'm the same way. Like, if I face the Celtics in the playoff series, I want all of their superstars and stars ready. Like I want Al Horford to be ready, but so it's always unfortunate when I go into a series and players are hurt because even if you win that series, the general discourse is going to be, oh, the Bucks beat the Celtics, but it doesn't matter because Tatum was hurt, hospital ring. Like, okay, that
Right.
always drives me insane. Like, dude, injuries happen. You have to adjust. Unfortunately, as a Bucks fan, I've learned that the hard way for like 3 years now.
I hate that. I hate that. I hated that Embiid limped into the playoffs, but I'm used to it. I hope he breaks that streak. And again, like I said, rely on Maxey. Let Maxey be the number one scorer, even though everything really is, it hinges on the best version of Embiid getting into the postseason. Rely on Maxey, rely on Paul George. They both can score. They both can create for other teammates. I think they can make life better for the role players, for a guy who can score a little bit in Kelly Oubre and others. The Sixers, if they get to the postseason healthy, I think they're as scary as your Bucks are if they're healthy because they have 3 guys who require being double teamed. And Maxey is a blur. Like I said, when I watch Tyrese Maxey, he's the quickest guy end to end I've seen since John Wall.
Yeah, no, that Maxey's right up there. I think the fastest guy in the league. It's got to be either like him or De'Aaron Fox, right?
I think he's faster. I think Fox is quicker. Like in the half court, because in the half court set, you're not supposed to be able to just blow by people like they're not there. De'Aaron Fox can blow by anybody, even in the half court set. It almost looks like a video game. You're in front of him, and then he's in front of you. He's that quick.
That is one of the reasons why I was so excited to watch AJ Johnson in Summer League because I'm watching him do that. Like he's just blowing by people in the half court. I'm like, you're not supposed to do that. Like, okay, I can see why we picked you. Okay. So that made me a lot more excited for that. But speaking of the Bucks, one of the most interesting quotes outside of Chris Middleton had to get surgery on both of his ankles, but he will be fine and ready to go into the regular season. That is definitely something to monitor. He showed how good he was last year in the playoffs with Dame on one leg, Giannis out, and he still dropped a 40-piece on Indiana in that Game 5. That was absolutely incredible. But I think the most interesting takeaway for Milwaukee was Giannis saying him and Dame didn't practice a single minute together in the offseason. Now, I know they're both busy guys, especially with Giannis having the Olympics.
Yeah.
So I'm not too concerned about that just because it seems like they both had big, Giannis with the Olympics. He was very caught up all summer. Mo, do you think that's something that Bucks fans should be worried about, though, that Giannis and Dame didn't practice with each other all summer?
No, I'm not concerned, only because they know each other's game, right? They do. These are 2 veterans. They know each other's game. And when they were healthy, the Bucks offense wasn't the problem when they were healthy before Doc came along, right? You would agree. It wasn't that you guys weren't scoring points. It was that your defense took a hit. When they were healthy, their 2-man game, it is damn near impossible to stop when they're both going. I think when you throw in a healthy Chris Middleton into that mix and you've still got Brook Lopez out there hitting threes, my only concern, if I'm a Bucks fan, is how consistent my bench will be, right? Because I think that ultimately is going to be what makes or break their season. I expect Giannis to have an MVP caliber season. I expect Dame to have an all-NBA caliber season. But if they don't get good production from the bench, and I'm not talking about just Bobby Portis, I'm talking about the young guys that are come out there and defend on the perimeter, some of the older guys you guys got. I think you guys got added Taurean Prince, who's a good rotation player. I think if their bench is solid and they develop some chemistry, Milwaukee's going to be fine, provided they go into the postseason healthy.
Yeah, I've said it before, and I said it again. When it comes to moves on the margin, like really filling out the real ends of your rotation, I think Milwaukee nailed that this year. They may have did it better than anybody this year. Getting Gary Trent, DeLon Wright, and Taurean Prince was quite the offseason for us.
I'm so mad. I think the biggest sleeper pick that nobody talks about, you and I do, because we're hoop heads is Gary Trent Jr.
I
I'm telling
agree.
you right now, I think Gary Trent Jr. is going to be competing with Bobby Portis and a few other guys for 6th man of the year. He's a good perimeter defender, but he's a great catch and shoot 3-point shooter. And when you've got Dame and Giannis and they create actions for you off the ball, Gary Trent Jr. is going to be deadly late in games.
No, that's fair.
Only the Lakers could blow that. Only we could blow that. You mean we didn't even talk to the man? We didn't even say, Gary, what are you thinking? We didn't even talk to the man. Only we could blow that.
Yeah, that's crazy. If he was willing to go for the minimum, I thought the Lakers would be all over that because he's like the perfect guy to put around Bron as like a drive and kick weapon.
And he plays the other side of the floor. You know what I mean? And I was like, wait a minute. So you're content with D'Lo again? Because I'm not. But that I digress. We are what we are. We'll see.
One of my other favorite media day quotes, Mo, wasn't the quote, it's reactions to the quote when D'Lo came out and said, "Loves me," and the whole section was just Laker fans going crazy, just like, "No, we don't," and it was just like trade them. The one guy was like, I might have to light my D'Lo jersey on fire and send it to his front doorstep just to send a message. I'm like, Jesus, never mind. If I'm D'Lo, I want out of there. Holy cow!
And I'm not anti D'Lo the player. I'm anti D'Lo in the sense that he's inconsistent. Nobody can deny the guy can score. Look, defensively, it is what it is. You got to cover for him, but he can score the ball. But what's consistent about him is he's inconsistent. He just is. And to me, that only works if you're not a starter, but you're like a 6th man. So it's hit or miss. But he's a starter. I don't like him and Austin Reeves as a backcourt. I actually think I'm fine with Austin Reeves. Don't get me wrong. I just think D'Lo, I'm still blown away that we have D'Lo on the roster, but Gary Trent was willing to take the minimum, and we couldn't even get a conversation going. Shout out to I don't really know who the Bucks GM is, but shout out to that guy.
Yeah, no, we definitely nailed that. Gonna take a break from some from media day. I'll get back to it in a minute, but I think Mo, I gotta say this. If I had to do better with Mo Better moment this week, Reggie Miller discourse, man. I'm starting to see so much Reggie Miller disrespect. And it's weird because, people are like, oh, well, players now can pull up and they can now run off screens and catch and shoot just like Reggie Miller could. The pinnacle of disrespect, Mo, was this guy said there are like 20 players, 20 shooting guards better than Reggie Miller in history. So, the challenge is name them.
Wait a minute. I mean, there might. I don't know if that's impossible, but
you'll understand the disrespect once I go through the list.
I would just remind people the problem with the argument of people attacking Reggie Miller is go look at Reggie Miller's field goal attempts per game, like because they go, well, Reggie only averaged like 19 a game, and I'm like, the man took 15 shots a game, man, 16 shots. I mean. And he played in an era where the score was going to be 88-79 sometimes. That was the era he played in. You don't think Reggie Miller, if you drop 25-year-old Reggie Miller into this current NBA with all this spacing and the way the game is called, that man would average 25, 28 points a game? Of course he would. You don't think he would come off screens? He excelled. As good as Clay is moving without the ball, Reggie Miller was better.
And he was actually much better than most would give him credit for in the mid-range.
And he had a quicker release. Like, the only guy that's better moving off the ball than Reggie Miller is probably Steph Curry. But Clay's not as good as moving without the ball and losing people and just wearing you out like Reggie Miller. To me, Reggie Miller is low-hanging fruit because what they do is they sit there and go, look at his numbers, Mo. He only averaged. Dude, look at his shot attempts. Look, and I would tell you, look at his shot attempts, look at his field goal percentage, and then tell me that he's not getting it done. Like, the guy was a great player. But I'm curious. I'm curious because we're talking about there's 22 guards better than, are they talking about 22 guards right now or in the history of basketball?
Oh, in history, but they picked a really bizarre assortment of 20.
Well, I want to hear the 20 because I got, you know what? Let's just do a good old fashioned game of Reggie Miller or.
Okay. The first 6, I think we'll both agree with the or. Reggie Miller or Kobe. Kobe.
I'll take Reggie. No, I'm kidding.
I'm just going to name off the first 6 because I know there's no way we're taking Miller over him.
Okay.
Kobe, MJ, Clyde, Wade, AI, Harden.
No, we're not taking Reggie over them.
Reggie Miller or Vince Carter.
So, the thing about that is the numbers say you take Vince Carter. My problem is, my biggest criticism when we talk about Vince Carter, the reason why we don't talk about Vince Carter the way we talk about Wade, the way we talk about Kobe or MJ, is because Vince Carter in the biggest moments, more times than not, he choked. He just did. He has an incredible highlight reel. But in clutch moments when it met, I'll never forget when Orlando tried to retool. It was the Magic team that had went to the finals with Dwight Howard. They got rid of, I think they got rid of Rashard Lewis and brought in Vince Carter. Remember that? They thought they had retooled. And I'll never forget, they met the Celtics, I think, in the conference finals or the semis, and it's late in the game. And Vince Carter had been guarding Ray Allen. Then he tried to guard Paul Pierce. And there's a timeout. They're both right next to each other. They're pointing and laughing at Vince Carter, who might be 10 feet away. But you can literally read their lips that they were like, yeah, his ass don't play. That they were laughing at him, man. They were having fun at his expense. I'm sorry, Vince Carter is probably one of the most overrated players in the history of the NBA. If you want to get caught up in the numbers, you're going to tell me Vince Carter. If you ask me, Mo, Game 7 for all the money in the world, Vince Carter, Reggie Miller, I'm taking Reggie Miller.
No, I 100% agree with that. Vince Carter, granted, I'll give him credit. I know a lot of people point out, well, he had that one really good series against the 76ers. And
yes.
And
100%.
But I agree. He's that guy that makes you mad because he should have been better.
That's my point. We should be talking about him like that.
He had all the athletic tools. He had a 3-ball. This man should have been talked about as a top 5 shooting guard of all time, at least.
Brett, easily. Think about it. You just nailed something that nobody even talks about with Vince Carter. Most people talk about the dunks and the highlight reels. Vince Carter was a better shooter than Kobe. He was. He was a better shooter than Michael Jordan. Vince Carter came into the NBA, Brett, and already was shooting 37, 38% from 3. He was a better shooter. If you can shoot the 3 with that level of athleticism and quickness, how you not won an MVP? How have you not done more? The problem I have with Vince Carter is he peaked. He literally peaked that year, and it was early in his career when he met Iverson in 2000, 2001. He was never better than he was that year. Never better again. He peaked. He peaked because here's the reality. When McGrady got away from him, McGrady was better than Vince Carter.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's funny. We might as well go there because that's another name on this list, Reggie Miller or Tracy McGrady. I will say the answer is Reggie Miller, but if we're just going peak Tracy McGrady, then the answer is Tracy McGrady.
Yes, because I kind of feel it's very similar to Vince Carter. But if you want to tell me, Mo, the best version of T-Mac versus Reggie Miller, yes, I would go. I guess I think the best version of T-Mac I saw was on Orlando, but yeah, I don't think Reggie could do nothing with that dude. But if you're talking about the breadth of your career, I'm just talking about the big moments in the postseason. Tracy McGrady don't have any big moments in the postseason.
Yeah, no, that's fair. All right, and here's where it starts getting iffy for me. Reggie Miller, DeMar DeRozan.
I love DeMar. I do. I think he's had one of them understated careers. But what am I supposed to say, man? I'm trying to think of like his signature moment in the playoffs. He doesn't have one. As much as I like DeMar, he didn't have one. He's never played in the NBA Finals. The best way I can put it is this: when Reggie Miller was the number one option, the focal point of an offense, the Pacers were title contenders, and they eventually went to a finals. DeMar DeRozan was a focal point for the Raptors. They could never get to the finals. DeMar DeRozan might have been the focal point on the Bulls. They barely could get in the playoffs. I love DeMar DeRozan, but sometimes guys are miscast. He's a talented dude, but if he's your best player, you're not that good a team. That's the best way I can put it.
That's fair. The other names on here, Reggie or Mitch Richmond. Almost got the names mixed up.
I'm not gonna disrespect Mitch Richmond, but it's the same way. I gotta call a spade a spade. Mitch Richmond was like DeMar, put up a ton of numbers, but he also put up a ton of numbers on a Kings team that got their ass beat nightly. So, look, I've got a rule. Every bad team has a leading scorer. He was a leading scorer of a bad team. I'm not saying Mitch Richmond wasn't nice, but I can't put you ahead of Reggie Miller because you have better numbers. You have better numbers by you getting your ass beat. I'm not taking Mitch Richmond over Reggie Miller.
That's fair. I think the only other interesting name on here before it really kind of goes off the rails for me is Ray Allen.
I would take Ray Allen. I would take Ray Allen over Reggie Miller. I don't even think that's close because think about Ray Allen. Because don't envision Ray Allen the catch and shoot guy to play for Boston. You got to look at Ray Allen in Milwaukee. You got to look at Ray Allen in Seattle. Ray Allen used to break people down off the dribble and bang on people. Like Ray Allen was a better basketball player than Reggie Miller.
Absolutely. Now this next list, I'm just going to go through pretty quickly here. Brandon Roy.
Yeah. I love Brandon Roy, but that's a horrible comparison because he didn't play long enough to where I could go. Well, he was nice for a hot minute, but he got hurt. I can't. Anybody whose career was cut short, they shouldn't even be on the list. You shouldn't even be on the list. I'm not doing that. I'm not taking Brandon Roy over Reggie Miller.
Honestly, yeah, that's fair. These next few names, Jimmy's an interesting one.
What, Jimmy Butler?
Yeah.
That is an interesting one. I believe Jimmy Butler's a better player than Reggie Miller.
Okay, Klay Thompson. Oh, sorry.
And this is why I believe he's a better player. Not just because obviously Jimmy was a great defender too. Look what Jimmy did. Like Jimmy made himself into a legend, Brett, later in his career. That Miami Heat team had no business going to the damn NBA Finals. No business. No business. He led them to the finals, and that series should not have been a 6-game series, but it was a 6-game series because Jimmy Butler played like a madman. I'm sorry. Yeah, look, I love Reggie, but I think Jimmy Butler. I would take Jimmy over Reggie.
Fair enough. How about Klay Thompson, the guy who gets compared to a lot, or the guy that they try to compare Klay to a lot?
I'm gonna take Klay over Reggie because I think their skill sets are almost mirror images of each other. But here's the thing. Klay had the benefit of being a second option and at times a third option, and he's got 4 titles. He's a big part of a dynasty. I can't take Reggie over that guy.
Fair enough. We got Allen Houston.
I'm taking Reggie over that guy. I like Allen Houston. See, here's the thing. You know, this is what younger guys will say. They're like, "Are you crazy? Donovan Mitchell is more explosive and athletic. He'll dunk on Reggie Miller's head." And that probably would be true if those two went on the court and they played a game on one-on-one. But if you put Donovan Mitchell and Reggie Miller on the floor with 8 other guys, Reggie Miller would be just as good as Donovan Mitchell. What has Donovan Mitchell in the bigger picture done? Because if you're going to rank him over Reggie Miller, you're going to try to rank him because you're going to say where he's more talented. I'm of the mindset that being talented alone isn't a default setting to being better. It's what you do that matters. And what I know from Donovan Mitchell is he's never played in a conference final.
Fair enough. These last 4 names, though, I'm going to save what I think might be the worst on this list for last. But
Don't
we'll
say
go-
Gordon Hayward. No, I'm just kidding.
We got Anthony Edwards.
And see,
On his way.
that's a tough call. Look, how long has Ant been in the league? 3 years?
Yeah, I think he's on his way to being better than him, but you can't say it now.
Here's the thing. That people are going to get wowed by his freakish athleticism, that he can score. He's already a better defender than Reggie right now at his age. I get all that, but here's my pushback. For all his flaws, Reggie Miller would not have lost a series playing against a guy on one leg. Anthony Edwards lost to a guy playing on one leg. On one leg. That's not going to happen to Reggie Miller, because you know what Reggie Miller going to do? He's going to run Luka into like 55 screens, and eventually the one-legged guy going to stop running. I don't know how you lost to a one-legged dude, but you managed to do it. I can't put you ahead of Reggie Miller. Not yet. Maybe at some point, but not yet.
Let's see. We got Devin Booker.
I feel like, you know what happens? You gave me Anthony Edwards, and then you gave me Donovan Mitchell, and then you gave me Devin Booker. And I find it interesting because in a weird way, they're kind of all, you know what I mean? Like they're all clogged together. If you were going to rank them, you and I would say Ants first, Booker second, and we will say Donovan Mitchell third, right? Of that group, we would probably rank them that way. I think Booker's a great player. I think he seems to have gotten better almost every year, but he played in. It's funny, he got to play in his one final. Reggie played in one final.
Yeah.
And Book was really good, but in the end, he lost. I'm not killing him. It's not his fault per se. I actually think this one is the closest one. Even though I think Anthony Edwards is going to surpass Devin Booker and then some. If you're just talking about his body of work, we're talking about because Devin Booker's been in the league, what, 9 or 10 years? His body of work versus Reggie Miller's body, because that's what it comes down to. I think their body of works are almost identical, but here's where Reggie Miller is different. Reggie Miller has so many signature moments where he made crazy shots late in games. That thing that he did against the Knicks was insane. I've never seen nothing like that. Like he has more signature moments. I'm gonna go out on a limb though. I'm gonna say I'm taking Book over Reggie Miller. I'm taking Book.
Fair enough. And if I were to rank those 3 guys, I would have Mitchell third, but I'm actually more of a Devin Booker fan right now than Anthony Edwards.
But I love that about you because you analyze everything. I'm not saying Anthony Edwards is a more complete player than Devin Booker. I'm saying I think he projects to go higher when it's all said and done. That's what I believe, because right now, remember what happened last year in the playoffs. They beat Denver, and once they beat Denver, what did everybody say? That's it. Anthony Edwards is here, y'all. He's about to dominate the league. He's about to take over the league. Wait till he gets to the finals. And what happened? He met up with Luka on one leg, and he didn't make it to the finals. I'm not rooting against Anthony Edwards. I'm not rooting against none of these young guys. I want them all to be stars and studs and all that stuff. But you got to earn it, man. They can't just pre-anoint you all the time. Devin Booker has had a better career than Anthony Edwards. I don't even think that's an argument. It's just a fact.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely true. That whole anointing him as the face of the league after he beat the Nuggets annoyed the crap.
It was too early, man. It's too early. Somebody asked me the other day, do I think Dallas is the beast in the West now? And I was like, they went on a great run. I don't know if that means they're the best team in the West. I feel like it was more of a great run than a changing of the guard. You know what I mean? Like, it wouldn't shock me if the Nuggets were right back in the thick of things. I think they're going to struggle a little bit, but if Calvin Booth can tweak the roster around Joker, Murray, and Gordon, and Porter Jr., I think they're still like in the middle of their chance to be a championship team. I just think we got caught up in everything that happened last year. Like, I'm confident. If they're healthy, Boston is going to play Milwaukee or they're going to play the Knicks in the conference finals, one way or another. Because I think Boston, that wasn't a fluke. They're just that good. I don't know if Dallas is that good to come out of the West again because a lot of things went their way. I don't know if that's going to happen again. I don't know if Minnesota's going to, come on. You can't tell me, Brett, that wasn't the weirdest 7-game series you ever saw. The Nuggets would beat them 3 times, and then they would blow the doors off the Nuggets the other 4. That didn't make any sense. And then in Game 7 in Denver, when it in Denver, they get blown out again at home. Unheard of.
They blew a 20-point lead. It's so funny because the game's not over till it's over. Right. Nah, as soon as Rudy Gobert turned into prime Dirk Nowitzki and cast a 17-foot post fade, that game was over.
When I saw that jump shot go in, I was like, I already knew it was over. I was like, Rudy shooting James with confidence is over. I felt like Minnesota took their confidence away from them.
The last 2 names on this list, Mo. 1, Jaylen Brown. I'm not taking Jaylen Brown over Reggie Miller.
I'm
not either. I think he's honest. I think he's good, and I wouldn't put it past him eventually, but he's not there yet. Even with his Eastern Conference Finals and
right. And I want everybody out there listening. I acknowledge Jaylen Brown had a great playoff run. He's got 2 great awards. He's a Finals MVP, and you can say, "Well, Reggie Miller never won that." He didn't. But I can't crown him better than Reggie just yet. I get it. But the difference between Jaylen Brown and Reggie Miller is Reggie Miller's career when he was with the Pacers until the last 2 or 3 seasons of his career, he was the man. He was the number 1 option. Everybody geared their defense towards stopping Reggie Miller. I love Jaylen Brown, but everybody doesn't attack Jaylen Brown. They attack Jason Tatum. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I'm just saying, like, he had the benefit of being the other guy. That was not Reggie Miller's. That wasn't his thing. He was the guy. So if you're asking me, could Jaylen Brown surpass him at some point? Yeah, he could. What if Jaylen Brown turned around and won another Finals MVP? Yeah, I would be like, it's a wrap. It's done. Actually, if he did that again, my concern wouldn't be that he passed Reggie Miller. My concern would be that he passed Jason Tatum.
This last name is hilarious.
Eddie Jones. I'm just kidding. I like Eddie.
I would probably prefer Eddie Jones. At least Eddie Jones accidentally made a couple All-Star teams.
He did.
Zach LaVine.
No, not even close. That's an insult. What is he doing on the list? Why is he on the list?
Why
is he on the list? It's an insult to the whole list. That one name just ruined the whole list.
That's what it felt like to me, because half of these, I'm like, some of them are like, no, okay. And then I'm like, nope, throw the whole list away. Nope.
Yeah, you've just made the whole list fraudulent. How is Zach LaVine on that list? You telling me you couldn't find another 2? Look, I just said a guy who was not an all-time great, but was a really good player. I would take Eddie Jones over Zach LaVine. Zach LaVine is the best you could come up with? Really? There have been a lot of really good 2 guards in the history of the NBA, and that guy's in the mix? That's a shame. That's terrible. Whoever did that list, it's almost as bad as the list that I saw on TikTok before we came on. I'm going to read you. This is somebody's top 10 list of all time. Now, some of the players are some of the players that you and I have on our list, but this is their order. MJ's number 1. That's not terrible. You might have LeBron. I think I've got MJ. Not terrible. You can flip that. They got Kobe number 2. I don't get it. Magic at 3. That's too high. They got LeBron at 4. That's just disrespectful. They got Kareem at 5. That's disrespectful. They got Wilt at 6. I think Wilt and Russell are hard to rank because they're literally from completely different eras. It's sort of like what you and I do, right? We've got this agreement. We're going to do everything after the merger, right? If you want to do a separate top 10 before the merger, that could be fun, but I wouldn't have Wilt in there. Bird, they got Bird at 7. They got Akeem at 8, which isn't bad for Akeem. Curry at 9. And they got Tim Duncan 10th. Which is interesting, by the way, because it also means that Shaq's not even in the top 10. They got Shaq at like 11 or 12. It's crazy.
That is bad. That is bad.
Yeah, I'm just saying. And they were arguing over it, and they came to a consensus, and I'm not kidding. They said the 2000s. I'm talking about the early 2000s, so that's like 2000 to 2010. They said that stretch was the best stretch of basketball in the history of basketball, and they said in that stretch, Kobe was the best player. That's why Kobe's number 2 all time. And I was like, even in that stretch, he only won 1 MVP. Like, and in that stretch, him and Shaq was teammates. And don't get me wrong, Shaq absolutely needed Kobe, but Shaq was the focal point. He was the number 1 option. Anybody that saw those Lakers play, you know damn well who was getting the ball first.
Yeah.
I admire Kobe. Of course he's a top 10 player. He is not the second best player in the history of basketball. That's a terrible take.
No, you know what the worst part is? What if I told you I could one up that list?
You can one up that? Really?
Yeah, actually, I think I could because there's
That's
a debate
impressive.
going on. I had somebody try to argue me that Steph Curry wasn't a top 10 player. He's the 15th best player of all time.
15th? Wow.
Name ready for this list of 14 better? By that's technically 15 better because
please tell me.
at number 1, MJ / Kobe. So we have 2 players at the top 1.
They're doing it again. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. The number 2, Bron.
Okay. That's
Number
not
3.
terrible.
3, Magic.
That's too high.
4, Kareem.
They should flip, basically. But yeah.
I can't wait to see your reaction when this goes off the rails in a couple picks here. 5, Shaq.
He's top 10. I think that's kind of early for him, but yeah, okay. That's not crazy.
6, Hakeem.
I think that's too high for him too, but not crazy.
7, Tim Duncan.
I don't think that. I think I would have Tim a little further up, but not crazy. Not crazy.
8, Dirk Nowitzki.
That's crazy. That is that is crack crazy. And I'm a huge Dirk Nowitzki fan.
Let's see.
How do you have Steph Curry? What is it, 15th or 16th? What is it?
Oh, he's 15th on the list, but there's 15 players ahead of him.
Right, but you got him at 15, and you got Dirk at what was that? 8? Was it 8?
Yep.
Look, I love Dirk. Dirk should be, if we're being honest, you rank this properly, Dirk's probably going to be around 20 or 25.
Yeah, that's probably around where I'd have him, honestly.
Right. Because that's not even disrespecting him. I think wherever Kevin Garnett is, Dirk's not far away if you rank them, right? All time. Like, if you have Garnett ahead of him because he's the better defender, I'm not even going to argue that, but Dirk should be somewhere near him. Nowhere near the top 10, and you got Steph way back at 15, Steph with 2, not just 2 MVPs, the only unanimous MVP in the history of the league. The man's got 4 championships and a finals MVP. He's got everything Dirk has, and he's got extra, and he changed the game. He literally, when no one talks about it, he changed the game, and he's 15th. Who am I arguing for Steph Curry?
And just think, there's 7 more names to go.
There's more? Yeah. Who else?
Because at 9, we have Dwayne Wade.
That's terrible. I feel weird making this argument because these are players that are some of my favorites. I told you Dirk's my guy. He's one of my favorites. I told you I love D Wade, but they're ranked too high. Neither one of them should be ranked ahead of Steph. Neither one of them. Matter of fact, we have a hard time ranking Russell and Wilt. I wouldn't rank Wade ahead of either one of them. I wouldn't rank Dirk ahead of either one of them.
Yeah, well, at number 10, we got the Big O.
I don't think that's not terrible.
That
It's
was
terrible.
not too crazy, honestly.
Yeah, that one right there makes more sense than the previous ones.
But at 11, we have Steve Nash.
That is horrible. That is look. You and I have defended Steve Nash on multiple shows and given him his flowers. 2-time MVP. I mean, a great player, and they've made the comparison to him and other point guards, and I've made the argument Steve Nash's primary role wasn't to score, it was facilitate. He could score, but he facilitated. How can you make the case that he stole an MVP from Shaq, he stole an MVP from Kobe, but you got him ranked that high? How is Steve Nash where he is, but Steph, who's got 4 titles to Steve Nash's 0 titles, is not in that? Come on, who else?
Number 12, Allen Iverson.
No.
Number
that's bad. Come on.
Well, if you didn't like AI, I'm sure you'll love John Stockton at 13.
No, I don't love it. I don't love it at all. I think off the top of my head, if I was ranking John Stockton, we're talking about the best players of all time. My gut feeling is, and I might be wrong, he's probably late 20s, early 30s, somewhere in there. I wouldn't have him top 20.
And at 14, then we get to Steph Curry, but right before him, Russell Westbrook, Lakers legend.
Oh my God. See, this list makes me criticize guys that I'm fans of I'm fans. Who made a list that have Russell Westbrook? I don't care even where you have Steph. On any list, Russ would be ahead of Steph. Who? Unless you said most turnovers or lowest basketball IQ. How is Russell West? First of all, with all his stats, with all his numbers, and he has some impressive numbers, Russ is not in the top 20. I would venture he's not in the top 30. My guess is if you did a top 100 players of all time, Russ would, at best, he would make an appearance in the 40s.
And then, of course, at 15, we finally get to Steph Curry.
What disrespect. What disrespect.
Because I commented, and I was like, you're going to have to explain this one, because there just ain't no way. And he goes, what's wrong with the list? And then the other guy commenting, which actually, ironically, was Kyle. Kyle goes, everything.
Exactly. I'm glad this show is being taped. It's a horrible list. I thought my list was bad. And by the way, it's not my list. These guys, they were doing a live on TikTok, and I just thought these are horrible lists. And you said you could do worse. You did 10 times worse. That is almost everybody they had in the top 10 shouldn't even be in the top 10. Like, what? I mean, just a horrible take. And they pushed Steph all the way back to damn 15. And then the final blow in the coffin, we're going to put Russ right in front of you. Like, what the hell? Russ?
And then they tried to argue, like, no, the triple-double version of Russ. Like, even the triple-double version.
Right.
Even the triple-double version. No.
You know what the triple-double version of Russ did in the playoffs? He got knocked out in the first round. Like, look, it's an impressive feat. It really is. And he did it, I think he did it 3 times. It's an impressive feat. But I watched a lot of his games. I mean, I lost count. And if you watch Russell Westbrook play, obviously one of his strengths is his motor. He's just nonstop and he's relentless. But if you watch his games, this is a guy that's literally trying to get a triple-double. Like, he's not playing like within the flow of the game. He's literally trying to get a triple-double. It's weird to call somebody that puts up numbers like that selfish, because obviously it means he gets 10 assists. I think in a lot of ways, Russ is selfish. I'm a fan of his talent. I'm a fan of how hard he plays. But if I was drafting a team, do you know how many point guards I would take ahead of him? Like, I don't even know. If we talked about the great point guards of all time, if you said Russell Westbrook or John Stockton, I'm taking John Stockton. Russell Westbrook or Gary Payton, I mean, I don't know where I would stop. I'm not taking him over Jason Kidd. I could keep going. I mean, honestly, I'm trying to win. I'm not taking him over Steve Nash. I'm not taking him over Mark Price. I'm not doing it. I'm trying to man, look. I don't want to people get too much caught up in athleticism and all that other stuff. The only point guard I know for certain that Russell Westbrook should be ranked ahead of easily, and that's because I don't like this guy either, would be Jason Williams.
That's fair. I'm also not a Jason Williams guy.
Because he is the most overhyped, overrated player ever. And it is not an accident that when they got rid of him and brought in Mike Bibby, they became title contenders. You know why? Because for all his handle and all the things he does well, the one thing Jason Williams couldn't do, and it breaks the stereotype, he's a white guy that couldn't shoot. He was a damn bricklayer. He couldn't shoot. Could not shoot. Woo. I can't believe that list. I'm still thinking about Wade and Dirk. What happened?
Like the first 7 names, I was like, okay, and then all of a sudden I saw Dirk. I'm like, what? And I love Dirk. And like I showed earlier, I'm actually wearing my Dirk shirt right now, ironically.
Look,
and I was just like, there ain't no way. I love Dirk, but there just ain't no way.
I do too. I love Dirk's game. I love everything about him. He should get credit for what he meant to the league. But even if I gave him all the credit he deserves, he's not a top 10 player, bro. I don't even think Dirk's top 15. Like I said, I think if they did it right, he might, if we really thought about it, he could land in that 18 to 20 range. He could, or maybe he's a little bit on the other side. But top 10, the fact that you put Dirk ahead of Wade, I mean him and Wade ahead of Steph, like what did Steph Curry do to these people? They really don't like Steph Curry. Like, it's funny because I think it was like a year or two ago, Chris and I are having this debate. I think we talked about it, and he was like, you don't think Steph's top 10? I said, I got to really think about it. But I realized that I wasn't thinking about just what Steph did in terms of championships and the MVPs. When you do something that literally changes the way the game is played, that is a part of your legacy. That sticks to you. Steph Curry absolutely is a top 10 player of all time. Now, by the way, these dudes that was having this debate, they were having this crazy debate, and they were like, Curry, one of the guys yelled because they had Curry at 9. He goes, well, first of all, the list is fraudulent because Kobe's not ahead of LeBron, or Curry's not ahead of LeBron. I'm like, no, that's crazy talk. That's crazy talk. I love Steph. He is nowhere near on the level of LeBron James, but he is absolutely a top 10 player because he put up the numbers, he won MVPs, he won titles, and he changed the game in the sense that when a shot that used to be recognized, Brett, as a bad shot, a guy comes down now, hoists up a 30-footer, nobody says nothing.
One of my least favorite arguments ever against LeBron, and I always think it's the funniest thing ever, when people try to go, well, you see people trying to replicate Steph. Nobody tries to replicate LeBron. And my response is always, yeah, well, because not everybody's 6'9", 250 pounds with freak athleticism.
Right. Well, guess
easier sharp passing.
Guess what? It's a lot easier to replicate Steph. You can't. You just hit it on the head, Brett. Name me another 260-pound guy, 6'9", that had a 40-plus vertical that could do what LeBron James could do: basketball IQ, the passing ability, the ability to drive to the basket. He also added to his game a three-point shot, a step-back shot, a fall-away shot. LeBron James is one of one. Right. You don't see kids going in the playground, I'm LeBron. How could you be, kid? You're not, unless you're some freakish mutant. Nobody it's easy to be Steph because a lot of us are we're his height or his size. LeBron is a freak. He is a freak one-on-one. I don't think we're going to see another one of him ever. I know some people have told me Zion is close. He's close, but he ain't close in their games. He's close in that he's a big dude with freakish athleticism, but I don't think he's going to never reach the heights of a LeBron James. Like Steph is definitely deserving of being in the top 10. But with LeBron, it's real simple. You either got him number 1 or you got a number 2 all time. And if you don't have him 1 or 2, something's wrong with your list. I told you this a long time ago, Brett. The problem with a lot of people are there's Laker fans and then there's Kobe fans, and there's a separation. They have put it in their head, Kobe, because Kobe was similar to Michael Jordan. That means by default, to be similar to Michael Jordan, and Michael Jordan's number 1, that means he's number 2. No, they're not. They weren't similar. Go back and look at their numbers. There's a big difference between Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant, and it's called efficiency. Kobe was not the most, for all his skills and the footwork and the time he put in the gym, Kobe was not the most efficient player. He wasn't. He took a lot of, I know he made a lot of bad shots, but he took a lot of them and he missed more than he made. Michael Jordan was a more efficient basketball player.
No, absolutely. And Mike is just another. He's also 101. It's like, well, why don't more people try to be like Mike? Good luck. Good luck when you get that vert, that hang time, that athleticism, that speed. Like, he was such a combination of just athleticism, speed that you don't really see from a lot of people. Like, you have to be like the top, like, 1% of athleticism and NBA standards to even really touch Mike, and that's a tough combination.
It is, and you got to have that dog in you too. Like, somebody was like, I remember somebody told me, well, Zach LaVine and Aaron Gordon, they can jump as high as Michael Jordan. And I was like, I don't disagree. They might be able to jump as high as him, but that's kind of like where the comparisons end. That's where it ends, right? Like, they're not the same in any other way other than that one thing. I'm talking about your game on both sides of the floor. Zach LaVine, by the way, I'm still mad that Zach LaVine was in that other conversation. You can't be insulting Reggie Miller talking about some Zach LaVine. Come on, man. Zach LaVine? Let me think of a 2 guard that would be more worthy than Zach LaVine, because there's got to be one that I'm missing right now. I'm not sure that D'Lo ain't too much different from. He can't jump aside. You know what? Jamal Murray's not a 2 guard, but I believe in Jamal Murray way more than Zach LaVine.
I remember when people tried to throw out the idea like, and this was before this year. It was like, we should trade Chris Middleton for Zach LaVine. I'm like, no. It was like 2022, 2023 when people were battling injuries. Chris was injury prone, and they started, we should trade Chris, and the name Zach LaVine kept coming up. Like,
they were serious.
Not. I'm good. Like, I think Chris Middleton's just a better basketball player overall than Zach LaVine. So
I don't think there's any debate. There's no debate, not even close. Yeah, I'm not doing that. I'm not going there. Like, I remember there was a time when people was telling me that Zach LaVine was as good as Devin Booker, and I was like, I don't know what the hell you're talking about. I don't know what you're talking about. That doesn't make sense to me when people say stuff like that. Look, I am not a big Bradley Beal fan. He's probably better than Zach LaVine.
I wanted to ask about one more media thing, because might be the most sicko lineup I've ever seen. And this is coming from the head coach of the Brooklyn Nets. Okay. And if he's going to do stuff like this, the Nets might be fun just because you don't know what to expect. So, this lineup idea he has, you ready for this?
Hit me.
He calls it the big boy lineup. We got Ben Simmons, Noah Clowney, De'Aaron Sharp, Nicholas Claxton, and Trendon Watford. And get this, he wants each of his big men taking 3 or more threes a night.
Really?
So he's throwing together that lineup, and he's like, yeah, I want you like all to shoot threes. Listen, this is a full-on tank job, but I might have to tune into the Brooklyn Nets just for that comment, because I want to see the creativity.
If he does that, I'm watching every Nets game. I am. Because I think it'll be so. It might be a train wreck, Brett, but it's the train wreck that you can't turn away from. Like, I gotta watch it. Like, by the way, you just gave me another guy that's probably better than Zach LaVine, Cam Thomas. He better than Zach LaVine.
I'm excited to see Cam Thomas just because I need to see it. Free Cam Thomas. He'd make a great 6-man on a lot of different teams.
100%.
To be clear, I don't think Cam Thomas is a starting 2-guard on a championship or play like a really good playoff caliber team.
I don't either. I agree.
Put that man as a 6-man though, and watch him like tap into the Lou Williams and Jamal Crawford. He was
yes. I think he's cut from that cloth. I don't know if he can reach the heights of Lou Williams and Jamal Crawford, but I think he's between those two guys. But yet, I think he's ahead of a guy like Norman Powell, right? Like who's another instant offense guy. Like, I'm with you. If you get Cam Thomas on a championship contender, matter of fact, Cottrell's a Cavalier fan. You get rid of what's old boy that's up and down all the time. I can't remember his name right now. You know, the guy that used to be he's their 6th man. I can't remember his name right now. Cottrell, you know
Karis LeVert.
Yeah, I think Cam Thomas is better than him. I'll take Cam Thomas right now.
You know what? Brooklyn might be willing to listen. They don't care about winning this year. They just want to capture the flag. Project Cooper flag is commenced for everybody.
Yeah, well, I think they're going to be in some good competition because I don't think Chicago is going to be very good. I think they're trying to capture the flag too.
Oh my gosh. Did you see the picture from the media day with Zach LaVine and Nikola Vucevic? And you would think they told them like their whole family just died or something before, because they looked so miserable that they wanted to be anywhere but there. They wanted nothing to do with Chicago Picture Day, Chicago style pizza. They're done. They just look so miserable the entire time.
They look so bad, Brett, that you thought at any moment they were going to lift up their jerseys and the words "trade me" were going to be on their chest. Like, you could tell they wanted to be anywhere but there. And it's not like everybody and their mom doesn't know. They've been trying to get rid of LaVine. Ain't nobody. There's no takers. Nobody's taking them. No takers.
Hey, you know what? Everybody keeps rumoring Lakers are going to jump on him eventually.
No, don't do that. Yeah, they've been talking about that for a while.
I know.
I tell you what, you do it, and everybody's gonna be excited. And then about 20 games in, LeBron's gonna be like, "Yo, have that guy sit beside you. I don't want him in the game no damn more. This guy be quitting too much." Zach LaVine is all show. He has no substance to him at all. He doesn't. Matter of fact, a lot of the things that I don't like about Zach LaVine, I hate to say it, but it's some of the things that Vince Carter had in him that I didn't like in him. I'm not saying he's as good, but I'm saying Vince had, for all his talent, Vince had a lot of quit in him. He did. He had a lot of quit in him.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. But yeah, no, that's all I had for us today. Mo, is there anything you wanted to add, sir?
Nah, man, this was fun doing a special edition of And One. I had a blast. Can't wait to come back at some point next week. Appreciate everybody that tuned in. Make sure you guys check out all the great content we have at the Wire to Wire Network. Wire to Wire Network, we appreciate you guys.
Yeah, next week should be back to our normal Thursdays. And later this month, the NBA season starts.
Sir.
And we'll be able to do some watch-alongs. We're going to have, Denver and OKC. We're going to do a watch-along here. I might try to sneak in a second watch-along the day before that Wednesday. I might try to take off so I can watch Bucks 76ers. So
that's going to be fun.
In the next couple of weeks, I think we'll start rolling out some predictions of all the different awards. Maybe have a little fun, try to predict standings. And
you know what? You just gave me a great idea. We need to, at some point, do a live on TikTok, but have like you, Kyle, Gene, Cottrell, some of the guys from Wire to Wire in that live having a debate over the NBA. Maybe I'm sure we could come up. Even if we disagree, we're going to come up with a better list than a list that has Dirk Nowitzki and D Wade in the top 10 all time. I'm certain of it.
That's fair. Just remember, if the list doesn't have Al Horford at one, throw it in the trash. But like I said, the 30th anniversary. Thank you very much. Like I said, thank you for tuning in on this special Tuesday. Like I said, my little cousin Alyssa's getting married on Sunday, so congratulations, Alyssa. It's crazy that you've grown up right in front of my eyes. You've grown into this amazing woman. Really proud of you, and I cannot wait to be with you on your big day on Sunday.
That's awesome.
And for everybody that's tuned in, thank you very much. Check us out next Thursday, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your night.
Thank you for tuning in to the And One podcast. If you like our content, you can find more on the Wire to Wire Podcast Network on YouTube, Facebook, and Spotify. Want more And One? Find it on Wire to Wire. Like and share our Facebook page and join the And One Discord. Grab the link to join from our Facebook. Thank you for tuning in and have a wonderful day.